What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Today, I want to share with you 12 mistakes you must avoid when growing in raised beds. Let's go! The first mistake you must avoid when growing in raised beds is one that I made this year, and it's actually what inspired me to make this video. So the mistake you must avoid is allowing the soil to drain out the bottom of your bed, like you can see right here. See, this bed is off the ground, so when I water, the soil can just get pushed right down out the bottom of the bed. And the reason this happened is because when I built this long bed, I didn't realize that there was as much of a slope as there is. So on that left side, all the way at the end, you can see that the bed is basically fully buried. But as you come over here, you can see the bed is risen up over the ground. So to avoid this, I could have done one of two things. I could have either built two beds and had them more of a tiered system, or I could have just taken more soil and brought it up around the base of the bed and then backfilled with some wood chips to bring it all the way up to about half the height. This way, the soil wouldn't drain out every time I watered. The second mistake you must avoid is leaving empty space in your raised bed. A well-managed bed always has something else to go in when you pull something out. So for instance, I'm gonna harvest some cabbage right here, and I've got some lettuce that I'm going to plant right in its spot. What I like to do is, after I harvest something like this, I like to always have some transplants ready to go in, so I don't have to even wait for the seeds to germinate. The stuff can get growing immediately. So we'll take this cabbage, remove some of these outer leaves. It's not the biggest head of cabbage, but it'll make some great fresh cabbage salads. And I want to harvest this one because I've got even more coming. So we're gonna put this down, snack on it later, and then we'll get, it looks like Tuck wants to sniff at it, and then we'll get some lettuce planted right in its location. So I'm just gonna pull out the root ball here. Be gentle though to make sure I don't hurt any of the roots around it. So we'll harvest that, pull that out. Then I've got some lettuces started right here. So once I get these in, they'll start growing. So I'm gonna plant it right in this location. Just gonna remove that leaf there. So we're gonna take this. Then I'll pull some of these lettuces out. Be super gentle, pop it right out like that. You can see we've got the nice roots at the bottom. Then I'm just gonna add some mycos right here to help form that mycorrhizal association with the plants. Helps for transplanting and building healthier roots. We're gonna drop it in and just bring that soil around it. And you'll notice I've got 3 lettuce little seedlings there, and I'm just gonna cut it back to 1 because I don't need all those seedlings. I'm gonna choose the one I want. I planted what was called the winter lettuce mix here. So I've got a few different varieties. I'm gonna choose that purple one. And then I'll just water it in. So again, a well-managed bed always has something else to replace what you pull out. We harvest that cabbage, we got a lettuce in, and in a few weeks we'll be eating this lettuce. The third mistake you must avoid when growing in raised beds is overcrowding. At first you might think, let me just pack a bed as much as I possibly can so I can grow as much food as possible. The thing is that less can sometimes be more. So if there's too many things planted in one location, then they start fighting for some of the light and competing, and they can't actually get as large as they should and fill the space as well as they should. So you'll notice right here I've got some kale planted close to each other and some beans over here. And what I like to do to help with my spacing and not overcrowding is I like to use the square foot planting method as a guide or a template to let me know how much to plant in each square foot. It's much easier when you break a whole bed down into individual square feet rather than trying to approach the whole bed. It can be a little overwhelming. So you'll notice right here I've got about 9 bush beans planted per 1 square foot in here, and you can see that this whole location, all these square feet are filled with beans, but it's not too dense that I'm not getting a good harvest. So I'm getting a lot of these beans here, and I've already harvested some rounds. We've got new beans coming up right there that are just forming. And then I've got a bunch of beans over on this side. These are the dragon tongue beans, my favorite beans. So when you can use the space just right, finding a balance between planting enough but not too much, you'll really get a good result. Let's see if Tuck wants a bean. Want a bean, Roosty? This guy loves eating his fresh greens, and he loves the dragon tongue beans almost as much as me. They're one of his favorite beans, and they are hands down my favorite bean. So if you guys have never grown the dragon tongue bean, I highly suggest you do. And if you love seeing Tuck snacking on the veggies and stuff, hit that like button, because this guy loves being a part of the channel. And when you give him the nice comments, I always read it to him, and he just really appreciates it. And I always give him the pets and the good boys from all of you. The fourth mistake you must avoid when growing in raised beds is draining too much nutrition from your beds without adding any fertilizer back. So because I grow in the square foot gardening method and I try to grow as much food as possible in a small location, the soil can get a little depleted, especially when you're growing things like cabbages and broccolis, because those are heavy feeders. So to compensate for this, what I like to do is between seasons, I like to do things like mix in some fresh compost, like this mushroom compost, into my soil to add back some of that nutrition. Or I like to add some organic fertilizers, like this Ivy Organics fertilizer. So what I like to do for this is just mix it with some of my soil or some of my compost, and then I'll just put it around the base of my plants as a nice top dressing to give them a good feeding. Something just like this. And this little addition of help by mixing the compost in or just top dressing will really help your cabbages, your broccolis, your kales, and any of your other heavy feeders to just excel and grow some great, excellent food. The fifth mistake to avoid when growing in raised beds is shading out your plants because of improper bed orientation. So where I live, the sun rises in the east, it sets in the west, and it sits in the south. Especially in the fall and the spring, it gets lower in the south. So what I want is my tallest plants and my vertical growing plants all the way on this north side here. So when the sun lowers, it's not shading out any of my plants here. And then all the other taller plants, they just descend down to the shortest ones over on the south side. So on the south side right here, I've got these lettuces planted. This way, when they get larger, they're not going to shade anything else further in the north. The sixth mistake you must avoid is shortening your growing season by not using season extension techniques, such as planting cold hardy veggies like Claytonia or Mashi, or not using things like floating row covers, which will help keep the frost off, or not doing things like building a hinged hoop house like I have right here that I'll put on as the season gets cooler and cooler as the temperatures drop. So with that hinged hoop house, that allows me to grow food in this section all winter long, and I'm in zone 7A. So just because it's not the growing season doesn't mean you can't grow food. The seventh mistake to avoid is allowing the cold to creep into your beds when you're growing later in the season. So when I have this hinged hoop house on, what I like to do is make sure that I've got a thick layer of wood chips around the base of my bed, just like this. I'll push the wood chips up against the side, and what this will do will prevent that cold from creeping in, because the wood chips will act as a form of insulation, allowing the bed to stay warmer later into the season. The eighth mistake you must avoid is using unsafe building materials in your garden. So when I build a wooden raised bed like this, I make sure to use untreated lumber, because I don't want the chance of any chemicals leaching into my soil. I know that this bed will rot quicker because I'm not using treated lumber, but again, I'd rather have to rebuild it in the future rather than dealing with any chance of chemicals getting to my food. And if you want to build a bed out of pallets, make sure that the pallets have HT on it for heat treated. You don't want to use any pallets that have MB on it, because that means methyl bromide, and you do not want that leaching into any of your soil. If you don't want to even use wooden beds and you want something that will last a long time but it's also safe to use, you could go with one of these steel Birdie's raised beds. This is Australian galvanized steel, so it's going to last a long time. It's high quality. The ninth mistake to avoid is using poor soil in your raised beds in the top 10 to 12 inches. So if you have a tall raised bed like this one where it's about 15 inches tall, you want to make sure you've got some good soil in the top 10 or 12 inches, but below that you can use some leaves or some unfinished compost just to fill that space. But you want to make sure those top 10 to 12 inches that you have a good high quality soil. So you could either build the soil like I do, building my own soil, or you can get a high quality potting mix. Something like Happy Frog is a really good quality one. But this investment is going to make a huge difference, especially if you want to grow like the square foot method like I do, where you're growing a lot of plants in a small amount of space. It will be worth it over time because you'll be able to grow more veggies and better veggies in a smaller area. The 10th mistake you must avoid when growing in raised beds is allowing moles and voles to dig underneath your bed and steal your veggies. The way to avoid this is when you're first putting your bed in, put some hardware cloth down at the base of your bed and then nail that to your bed. After that, just backfill the sides with some wood chips. This way, when the moles and the voles or anything tries digging underneath your bed and stealing your veggies, they won't be able to get in. The 11th mistake to avoid is neglecting conveniency. This may sound simple, but it makes a huge difference. If your bed is convenient and easy to work in, it will encourage you to come out here to check on your plants, to get more stuff growing, or to just spend more time out here, which ends up being better for your garden and your plants in the long run. So if you have a raised bed and you want to build one out of wood like I did here, it's nice to add this little ledge so you can sit on it, reach in, and just work on everything rather than being on your knees and bending over. Also, if you have a bad back, you can build a bed that's a little higher up so you don't have to bend over at all. You can just kind of work at head height. So again, this little simple tip of making the bed convenient for you really will make a huge difference when it comes to overall health in the garden, because you'll be out there more. The 12th mistake you must avoid is choosing a bad location for your bed. And the reason I put this one last is because I know some of you don't even have a choice of where you can put the bed. There's only one spot that it can fit if you have a small amount of space. But if you do have the luxury of choosing a location, try picking one that gets about 8 hours of sunlight. That will be ideal for most plants. Although a lot of plants can do real well in 5 to 6 hours of sunlight. But if you are in a spot that gets basically all shade, then just try to grow some plants that are shade loving and can thrive in the shade. Things like lettuces or kales, things that you grow mainly for the leaves. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. These mistakes to avoid, I hope they bring you some value, save you some time and some frustration in the future. I just wanted to thank all of you for the continued support that you share and the love that you share for me, but also mainly for Tuck, because this guy deserves all the kind words that you share with him. He's always out here with us. He's definitely a part of the channel. I like to call him the leader of the channel. I kind of just follow behind what he does. And he's just a great garden companion, and everything you say that's nice, I always read that to him, and it perks his ears up and it just encourages him, and it encourages me too. So I just wanted to thank everyone for just the continued support. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to check out the merch down low. And remember, whenever you're on Amazon, start your shopping with our Amazon affiliate link. Also, any of the products that I used in this video, I'll put the links right down in the description. Tuck and James will be back at you again real soon. We